on my quest to get the 70 Le Mans Sport running, but I have came to a problem. And the problem is that a lot of you may face or haven't faced. So I'm going to do it, and then I'll show you all right now so you all can make an informed decision of what you want to do. And this applies to GM, Ford, Chrysler. As you know, that as time went on, it used to be in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s that all of the manufacturers had those big, heavy starters. Those big factory heavy starters weighed 10, 12 pounds, big old armatures and all that like that. Well, as time went on, everybody started to make what they would call a mini starter. And if no matter what brand that you deal with, whether it be Blue Oval, whether it be Mopar, or whether it be GM, they all have mini starters. They have factory type mini starters, and they also have that you can buy aftermarket mini starters, which is a design that's been around, man, since hot rodding has started in the late 70s. And I'm going to show you an example of the aftermarket mini starter, and I'm going to show you an example of the um, factory mini starter, and I'm going to tell you why I use each one in different applications. And here we go. This starter right here is a aftermarket mini starter. Now, it has the ability to bolt straight across. And if you don't know, the bolts that are to the inside of the starter, the inside bolts that will put the starter closer, which will be this bolt and this bolt here, those are for the 153 tooth flywheel or a 10 and a half inch flywheel. That's what they're for, because you want to take the Chevrolet starter has three bolt locations. It has two straight across and it has one at an angle. The angle is always for the bigger flywheel. But this starter here utilizes the ability to be used on the block and still bolt straight across. But you would use this bolt here and this bolt here and push it farther away from the flywheel for the 11-inch flywheel. If you had the 10-inch flywheel, 153 tooth, you would use this bolt and this bolt, which will bring the starter closer to the flywheel. Now, this starter can go, it'll save your ass if you got a broke bolt in the block or one of the other bolts are broken in the block or something like that. It'll save you if you have time a tight issue, and it has the ability to be clocked in about three different. You can clock it in three different ways to rotate. Now, here is the GM factory type mini starter. As you can see, it is a staggered bolt hole. So this starter here would go on a 11-inch flywheel. This starter can be purchased for a 2500 or 3500 van or pickup with a big block or 454. It'll work on the 496. It'll work on certain 6 O's. 6 O's that work on certain 6 O's depending on the flywheel type. But this starter here has the same nose cone, the support it has the support for the starter drive. So when this here goes out, it's supported all the way out. And it's a small starter. You can see in comparisons to the everyday aftermarket mini starter you purchase, that's an aftermarket starter. This factory starter is a lot smaller. And this starter allows you the ability to say if it was to go out. In a lot of these applications, if they don't have this part here, if they don't have the standard bolt head starter, you can go into an auto part and you could buy the 5.3 straight across starter and just take these two bolts out, slide everything backwards, take this high tension cable off here, slide everything backwards, and put it together. But this starter weighs maybe 2 pounds at the most. Where this starter here is probably 8 pounds. Now, this would be a 2 horsepower starter. This would be about a 5 horsepower starter. But both of them are smaller than that big old Delco Remy or gear reduction motor starter or that big Ford starter. They're weighing that, and they give you the ability for, like, say you put headers on your vehicle. And a lot of times, like on my C10 here, the header pipes on my C10, they go underneath the starter. So if the starter goes out on this truck, not only do I have to remove the starter, but I have to take the bolts loose on the flange, on the heads of the header. I got to drop the flange pipe out, and I got to be able to slide the header out enough for me to be able to get the starter out. That's on a big starter. On this Monte Carlo here, I have been using this factory GM staggered starter, and it's got a 468 in it, and the starter works just fine, no problem. Also, the headers on that are shorty headers, so I'm able to get right underneath there, unbolt them, drop the starter right out. But just something to think about when you're buying a starter for your vehicle, and if it's a mini starter, if you can get a factory one that has this support at the end of it for the armature, that also will support the starter drive all the way out, you're doing better. On this one here, you see it just comes out. It doesn't have any support in here in the end. It doesn't have any support. Not saying it's a bad starter, but it just don't have that lot of support. But if you can get a mini one, and you can get them in staggered, or you can get them in straight across. If you can get a mini starter that's a factory type starter, that's the way to go there. That's the way to go, unless you have a problem with clearance. So just want to show you all that so you all can make an informed decision. And hopefully this helps somebody out, share with your friends. Because when you're going to go buy a starter for a vehicle, knowing that you could get a factory type mini starter and get rid of that big heavy starter, and in most applications, the price is the same at most of your local parts or places, AutoZone, O'Reilly, Advanced. Most of them, the prices are just about the same. Only difference of it is that you knowing uh, which type of starter that you need, that's a factory starter for your vehicle. And like I said, if it's a Chrysler, you can get the later model, smaller starters that came on, like the Durangos and stuff like that. There's a V8. You got to drop right up in there. There's a smaller starter, takes up less space, easy for you to get it in and out of it and stuff like that. The Ford, you can get the ones off the newer type Mustang, but you ain't got to have the big starter. You get the newer type one off the Mustang. It's a smaller starter. It does it. And like I say, on the Chevrolets, you can get the staggered or the straight across starter. Now the Buicks and stuff like that, I don't really know about them because I really don't deal with BOP, with Buick Oldsmobile or Pontiac. But this is what I'm in that application, you probably would need to get the, if a BOP is your deal, then you probably need to get this starter here for a BOP. That way you can bolt it up without no problem for a BOP. This would probably be your option here. As far as a mini starter, you'd have to have this one here, this straight across, because most of the BOPs, that's what they do. They take a starter into bolts or straight across. And so this would be your option for a BOP. But if you're running a Chevrolet or a small block or big block, they have two versions of this. This is the staggered bolt pattern for the large 11-inch flywheel, and then they have one where it's straight across like this that you buy. This comes on like the 5.3s and the 4.8s. That would be your starter if you're running a smaller flywheel. As always, I hope this helps somebody, and when you're doing something, and it'll be an upgrade for your vehicle, and it won't draw so much on your starting system. Won't be so many amps to spin that little bitty starter versus spinning a great big one. As always, subscribe, like, share, comment, and share it with your friends. And I'll get at you on the next one.